Welcome to another Apollo Papyrus podcast episode. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, my interview guest is a physician and former school teacher on the Navajo Nation, and she is the author of a pair of memoirs, From Mountains to Medicine and Miracles in the High Desert. Her name is Dr. Erica M. Elliott, and my interview with Erica will follow the note-taking sounds. Dr. Erica Elliott, welcome to the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Aaron.
Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
All right. So, as Aaron said, my name is Erica Elliott, and I'm a physician, a medical doctor, practicing and living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I'm also the author of 2 memoirs, and with a third one on the way. And the first memoir is called Medicine and Miracles in the High Desert. The subtitle is My Life Among the Navajo People. It was when I was, before I was a doctor, way before I was a doctor, I was a teacher in a remote area, Canyon de Chelly in Arizona, on the Navajo reservation, back when the tribe was still very, very traditional. And it's a very engaging story. It's very unusual. That story we can talk about later, because I think your audience would find it really compelling. It's across the board gotten 5-star reviews. I think people really are touched by the story. And the second memoir is called From Mountains to Medicine, Scaling the Heights in Search of My Calling. And it's the story of my 10-year magical journey all across the world and looking for what I'm supposed to be doing. So the first place I looked, that's when I was a school teacher. I thought, I love teaching these kids so much, and I just love them, and they've come alive because they know I care about them, and I've learned their language. And so I thought, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, teaching. And then I joined the Peace Corps in South America and taught nutrition and bilingual education, Spanish and Quechua, and then one thing led to another, and then I was accepted into an all-male climbing club, and I ended up, climbing the same mountains they did in the Andes, way up high, and I was the first American woman to reach the summit of Aconcagua, which is the highest mountain in the Western Hemisphere, and that taught me a lot of things too. That taught me how to not be afraid and to realize that I was more capable than I ever imagined. And it helped me learn how to work as a team. And I learned so much that I used later on as a doctor. And anyway, over this 10 years, I was looking, and then it turned out that it was right in front of my nose. I come from a whole lineage of Swiss people, doctors. I'm the 3rd generation, but I didn't. I had this misconception that you had to be a genius to be a doctor. Why did I get such a crazy idea? It's because my mother's brother was a true genius. He was a medical doctor in Switzerland, and people from all over the world would come to him with terminal cases, and he'd heal them. He was a regular MD who kind of steered off on his own path, just like I've done too. And all his patients, they all said over and over again that he's a genius. And so since he was my only experience with a doctor, because I was a very healthy child growing up, and so I was under this misconception that you had to be a genius to be a doctor, and I knew I was smart, but I wasn't a genius. I wouldn't call myself a genius. And so I was looking for other ways to find my purpose. And then what happened was when I ended up back in the States, in Colorado, I was getting my master's degree in experiential education, and I was getting certified as an EMT, and I was an Outward Bound instructor in the Colorado Rockies. And at that time, between doing all those things, I had some extra time, so I decided to take some advanced placement science courses because it'd been so long and I wanted sort of updated information. So I was with these young kids. They were like 18, 19. I was 10 years older because I'd done all this traveling. And I discovered they were all pre-med students. And I was the only one who wasn't a pre-med student. And I was so shocked because I discovered that they were not geniuses. They were just memorizing, and they weren't even using critical thinking or asking questions. They were just memorizing and then taking standardized tests and spitting back out what they memorized. And I thought, geez, oh my God, I've been under this misconception for my whole life that you had to be a genius. And so then I thought, I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be in medicine. And so the advisor told me I was too old. This was way back when, they didn't accept older people. And he said, and you're a woman. I said, what does that have to do with it? And he said, well, it's much harder to get in. And in those days it was. And he said, you don't have money because you were in the Peace Corps. So how are you going to pay for it? And four, you don't have a massive background in science. And anyway, I was not discouraged by him. In fact, it made me even more committed to getting in. And when I got a letter from Stanford asking me for an interview, I went and showed him, and I said, it's really important when somebody has a vision that, that you don't get in the way of them doing their vision. And so anyway, I went into medicine, and then the third memoir is about my very, very unusual trajectory in the world of medicine, which I'm working on now. It's not published, and it'll probably be published in a few months, and I don't have a title for it yet. But I thought your listeners would really enjoy the show, enjoy the books. That's why I wanted to be on your podcast. I wanted to tell them about the books.
Your first book, as you mentioned, is a memoir titled Miracles in the High Medicine and Miracles in the High Desert, My Life Among the Navajo People.
Yes.
Without spoiling too much about that book, what is it about?
It's about me as a young graduate from college going out into the middle of nowhere and going to the reservation to teach school to fourth graders. And at first, I thought I'd made a mistake. The kids didn't talk to me. They didn't look at me. I didn't understand Navajo culture. We got no orientation, the teachers, and so I misread a lot of things, which later my Navajo teacher aide explained to me. And once I understood their culture, and she started teaching me a little bit of this language, which is probably the most difficult language in the entire world, but I'm linguistically oriented. So, and so once I started talking Navajo to the children, and they knew I cared about them, oh my God, they just lit up, and they invited me to their remote homes. This was a boarding school, so I checked out a different student each weekend, and the families welcomed me into their home and their ceremonies, and I rode their horses. I helped them herd sheep. It was incredible. And then they invited me to the peyote ceremonies, and I saw things that I don't even know how to explain. They're true miracles because I have no explanation, like instant healing. And this happened with a cancerous lump that I had, but I saw it among other people too, these instantaneous healings. And I, in the ceremonies, when I was taking the peyote, I spoke fluent Navajo, and I was just starting to learn it. I could say a few sentences, And so I couldn't, I can't explain what happened, why I could sing songs I'd never heard before in Navajo and pray in Navajo. It was mind blowing. And for them, the peyote ceremonies are very sacred. They're not recreational at all. In fact, they completely condemn people who use they call it the medicine, misuse the medicine. They condemn that, and it's very religious and ceremonial and sacred. But anyway, I experienced so many things there that a normal white person would never experience in their whole life. And one, I was sniffed by a mountain lion too. That was life-changing too when I was camping. But anyway, it was an incredible experience that white people won't have ever experienced, because it's like long gone. That era is gone when it was very, very traditional. And I came back years later as a doctor to serve these people, and that was an amazing experience too, helping them medically as a doctor.
Your second book, which is also a memoir, is titled From Mountains to Medicine, Scaling the Heights in Search of My Calling.
Yep.
Without spoiling too much about that book, what is it about?
I think I told you in the beginning, that's why I took too much time, because I was telling you what the book is about. It's about all the places that I look to try and find what I'm supposed to be doing in life. You know, first I thought I was supposed to be a teacher, then I was supposed to be an outward bound instructor, then I was supposed to be this and that, and it took me on a very wonderfully circuitous route. So when I finally realized I'm supposed to be a doctor, I had all this experience that really helped me as a doctor, whereas my classmates went straight from college into medical school and didn't really know that much about life and suffering, and and dealing with patients who are having great deal of difficulties and so forth. So in a way, I'm really glad that it took me so long to figure out what I was here for.
Joan Borisink, I think I mispronounced that name, wrote the foreword for your first book, and Larry Dosey wrote the foreword for your second book. I apologize if I mispronounced those names, but feel free to tell our listeners a little bit about Joan and Larry and how you were able to get each of them to write a foreword for one of your books.
They're both friends of mine. Joan Borisenko is a famous speaker. She's been speaking for the last 40 years, and she speaks all over the world, and she's written many books. And as I know her very well, and we're very good friends, and so she offered to do the foreword on that one. And Larry Dosey and he's a medical doctor, and he's written many, many, many books. They're both very famous in their field, and we've been friends for a very long time. So he offered to do the foreword on the second book.
What motivated you to write a pair of memoirs?
I have a lot of life experience that I think the readers could really be inspired by. So I wrote it. I already had many diaries and journals and articles I wrote and letters from my parents back and forth. So I had it all documented, but I wanted to make it in a book because I thought it would really engage the readers and inspire them. And because there's parts in there about overcoming great obstacles, great difficulties. And so, and even though my life doesn't resemble anybody else's life, there's so many life lessons in there for the reader. Very, very deeply moving life lessons that they can relate to in their own particular way.
Are both of your books independently, traditionally, or hybrid published, or did you use different publishing methods for each of your books?
Okay, so I The first one I did a hybrid with Balboa Press, and then it was doing really well. So Bear and Company slash Inner Traditions asked me if they could uh, republish it and take it on. And so I said, okay. So they're mainstream publishers, but it started out with hybrid. The second one was self-published in a writers co-op called Lamastide. It's a bunch of writers who just do this themselves. And the third one, I don't know how I'm going to publish it. I haven't thought that far yet.
You have actually a couple of books currently in the works, and one of them is slated for publishing. And again, you don't know the exact way about how it's going to be published, but it's slated for publishing as soon as later this year. And another one is less further along. Without spoiling too much about them, what will each of your upcoming books be about?
Okay, the third one I already told you about that I'm working on. It's about my time in the whole world of medicine from the time I started as a medical student, and as I was very enthusiastic, and then gradually I realized something was wrong here. We were learning some things that just weren't right, and then I learned years later that the pharmaceutical companies really ran the medical schools, and so they were teaching things that would be in favor of drugs and so forth. And so I got kind of disillusioned, but I went through the system, did really well, but this isn't what I was looking for. Just sort of corporate medicine was pretty awful. You have 15 minutes to talk to the patient, and then they do lots of tests, and then they give you lots of pills for your symptoms, not really figuring out what's wrong with you, why you have these symptoms. I was very discouraged. And then I got a disaster, which was the best thing that could ever happen to me. I got sort of harmed by all the nasty chemicals in the building I worked with. It was a brand new building full of bad chemicals. I got quite sick, really bad sickness. It affected every part of my body, including my brain. And so the blessing is it forced me off that path into my real path in life, which is helping people actually feel good. So I stepped off the mainstream and I set up my own little clinic and started treating people the way I thought was right and help them get well. And it's been so rewarding that I'm going to do it till I drop dead. I just love it. I'm not going to retire ever because I just love what I do. I love helping people feel better. And that leads to the fourth book called The Medical Detective: Simple Solutions for Solving Medical Mysteries, because I was nicknamed a medical detective because I was really good at figuring out why people felt bad. And people came from all over the country for me to figure out why they felt bad or why their heart was abnormal, why this, why that. And so I decided that I need to write a book about it, about some of these real case histories. Of course, I changed the name, and I think people would be really interested in, because they'd see how I go about figuring out these problems, and it's really simple. And it sort of is shocking when you read about it, because you'll say, well, why didn't the regular doctors figure it out? You made it sound so easy. It's because the way the system is set up. It's set up so you can't really do a good job helping patients. It's corporate medicine. It's about making a profit. And so anyway, it's all stuff that I think the reader will really enjoy a lot.
What is your work as a medical? Okay, oh boy, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting what you've previously discussed. So, but what is your work as a medical doctor like?
Oh, it's terribly rewarding. People come from all over, and I have them prepare to come see me, like give me a timeline, just like a real detective. Say, when did you start feeling bad and what's different? Did anything happen then? What makes you feel better? What makes you feel worse? When you're out of your house, do you feel better? And and so they come all prepared. I ask what medicines they're on, what their diet's like, and then when they come, then I ask deeper questions. I do a little exam, and I just am able from because I've had vast training. I've learned things that you never learn in med school, like what like nutrition, what you eat to be healthy, what you breathe, what you put on your body, what you wash your clothes with, what you build your house with. We didn't learn any of that in school, nothing. And that's what's happening in the world today. All that stuff we didn't learn, that's what's going on with people. They're sick from toxins, from a rotten diet, from eating processed foods, from eating pesticided foods, from being in a house full of fabric softeners, scented candles, pesticides, building products that outgas formaldehyde. I mean, we're the sickest nation in the entire world. And that's no joke. I mean, regarding chronic conditions, I'm not talking about infections or surgery or anything like that. I'm talking about chronic conditions. We are the sickest nation in the entire world, and we used to be the healthiest.
Why was finding your purpose in life important to you?
Because I knew as a little girl, I knew I was here for a reason, and I didn't know what the reason was. I looked around at everything and I said, there's more to life than just sort of playing with your friends and eating, going to school, coming home, watching TV, and go to bed. I just knew that, but I had no idea why I was born, what the purpose was. I knew I had a purpose, but I had no idea what it was. And I was determined after college I was going to find it. And I found it. And I can't be more happy. And that's why at my age I'm still practicing. Why would I want to quit? I found my purpose and I love it. And how you find your purpose is you find what you're good at and you find what brings you happiness doing it, and then you put it in service to others. That's how you find your purpose.
One final question. One of your mottos is never waste a bad experience. How does that apply to you, and how can that apply to others?
Well, that's what I explained it, that I gave one example. I was injured by chemicals in a building and it was disastrous. And just looking at that alone, you think, you poor thing. Wow, it wrecked your whole career. You were, feeling bad for 5 years. No, here's why it didn't waste a bad experience. I was trying to heal myself, so I took a deep dive into all the things we never learned in med school. I got board certified in environmental medicine, and I healed myself, and then I could heal other people. So it was a huge blessing to get me. That disaster got me out of corporate medicine and onto my real path in life. And that is an example, one of many examples of never wasting a bad experience.
Dr. Elliott, thank you for appearing on the Apollo Papyrus podcast. You were a wonderful guest to interview.
Oh, that's awfully nice of you, Aaron. Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope you get a chance to read my books. I think you'd like them, Aaron.
Dr. Elliott was a fascinating guest to interview. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to find your writing and reading purpose. Bye for now. Copyright 2025, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.